welcome to Justin's Arcade. Today I just wanted to talk about something you might not think about when building a game room, something I didn't think about at the beginning, which is power distribution. When you first start out, you might only have a cabinet or two, and it's easy enough to plug them right into the wall or get a power strip and flip them on that way. But after you get a certain number of games, it can kind of be a pain to plug in each one. You'll notice in the intro video for this channel, you see me on the top flicking the switches for each cabinet. And I did that for a long time, and that's a lot of fun. It's kind of nostalgic, and it's cool to hear each machine power on when you flip the switch. But after a while, sometimes you just want to come out into the garage, play some games, and then leave. And having to flip all those switches with, reaching around the cabinet and stuff can be kind of a pain. So what I wanted to do was have a way that I could turn all my games on and off very easily, and also handle some future expansions depending on what games I might add or remove, just to make things a little bit easier working with machines. So I just wanted to go over some tips and tricks that I did, and it might help you out. So let's get started. So initially I used a couple of these power strips. I got them at a yard sale, and I think they were used at construction sites. They're really big, heavy duty, lots of outlets. They have this massive plug with really big gauge wire on them. It's supposed to be 20 amps a piece. So I daisy chained these together off of the single outlet that was in that garage. There was only one. And so I had all the games plugged into this, and to turn on and off the games, I just plugged and unplugged the outlet. And this worked okay, but I had to stick my arm between these two cabinets and make sure there was nothing obstructing this outlet, and pulling and unpulling the plug was not really great for the outlet. It was kind of wobbly. So to make things a little easier, I purchased one of these wireless outlets. It's just a little black box with two outlets on the bottom and one of these little key fobs. So the key fob just lets you turn on and off the outlets. Pretty simple. So then I plugged the existing power strips into this wireless outlet and then can use the key fob to turn on and off all the arcade machines. And this solution worked pretty well for a long time. One thing I noticed though is on the back of the outlet here, there's a pairing process outlined, which got me thinking, there's no switch on here to set channels, and I'm not sure that each of these will have a different signal when you buy them at the store. So I was kind of worried about someone else buying this outlet close to me and then being able to turn on and off my arcades. Not that I think anyone would do anything malicious, but I don't really want my 40-year-old circuits in those machines running when I'm not here. So the next thing I went for was one of these toggle switch outlets. I use these a lot in my home theater setup so I can turn on and off power-hungry devices or stuff that doesn't need to be turned on when I'm not using it. So same thing here, I replaced the wireless outlet with one of these toggle switches and plug that in. And this is super nice because I can reach back and flick the switch and I don't have to worry about someone else being able to turn it on, and I don't have to unplug and plug the plug every time. So I used this daisy chained power strip and toggle switch for quite a while. It worked really well, except once I added a few too many games, this happened. Yeah, that sucks. All the power goes out in the room. So the obvious thing here to check is the circuit breaker. And I checked, and the circuit itself was not tripped. So I started looking around and I found one of these guys. Yep, GFCI outlet was upstream of the single outlet that was in the game room. So I got one of these kilowatt testers because I was curious just to see what the amperage was, and of course it was way under 20. It was about 14.5 amps. So it's no surprise that the breaker wasn't tripping. But the GFCI was tripping. So at this point I was tired of dealing with daisy-chained outlets and switches and all these extension cords. So I decided to have an electrician come out and install some outlets to go around the outside of the room. Instead of putting one circuit on each wall, both circuits run to all of the boxes. This gives me 2 plugs on circuit A and 2 plugs on circuit B at each box. This is helpful so I can balance the load between the 2 circuits. Additionally, each circuit has its own switch so that I can turn on and off a group of machines, which is useful if I need to do maintenance on a certain machine. Awesome, that's so much better than having to deal with a bunch of power strips. Now one minor issue here is that these outlets stick out from the wall a little bit, and then once you plug in the plugs of the arcades, it sticks out even more. To help with that, I use these little 1-foot extension cords that have a flat side, and this makes it so you can push furniture, or in this case arcade cabinets, right up to the back of the plug. Now it might not seem to make much of a difference, but if you check out the measurements here, a standard plug doesn't have a bend radius until about 3 or 3.5 inches. In my case, since I have a walkway in between all of my arcades, this saves about 6 inches in the walkway space. And here you can see the difference between the two. Not huge, but every little bit helps. There are a couple of spots against the walls that don't have machines lined up, and in that case you end up with a ball of cords like this. So I figured I'd come in and use those same extension cords and do a little bit of cable management so I can get these cords out of the way. Now that we got them all plugged in, I'm just going to use some Velcro ties to tie these things up out of the way, just so it looks nicer and also so that guests' feet don't get tangled up in the cords when they're sitting down at the bench. Yeah, that looks a lot nicer. And since I was doing all of this work, I decided I'd also upgrade the lighting a bit. This side of the garage only has a single fluorescent fixture, and a long time ago I added 2 black light bulbs to make things glow. The downside was that I no longer had a standard light for when I needed to work on the machines, so I'd always have to bring out my shop lights. So I decided to move the fluorescent fixture down one, add a standard light in the middle, and then install a second fluorescent light fixture with 2 more bulbs. So everything would glow a little bit brighter in the black light, and I would have a standard light so that I could see when I need to work on the machines. I also quickly wanted to mention the networking setup for the game room. I have a couple of vintage Mac computers used to display screensavers and attract modes, as well as a couple old Windows 7 machines in a few of the arcades. All of these operating systems are quite out of date, and I don't want any of them to be able to connect to the internet. So I have a dedicated VLAN for the arcade room, which has no routable access to the internet, but it allows me to still connect in to the network and manage the machines if I need to update the software or install new ROMs. Alright, so that was a look at the power distribution in my game room. I hope you found it interesting and maybe you learned a few tips here and there. It's not super interesting to everyone, but I kind of like to know how other people's game rooms are set up, kind of behind the scenes, you know, the cords and stuff that are going on back there. So if you have your own tips and some stuff you've done for your game room that work out well for you, please let me know in the comments, because I found that kind of stuff really cool. Anyways, that's it for this video. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.